Hello guys, this is your friend. We are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto, Hinata and pregnant Hanabi have been in a secret polyamorous relationship? Part 3. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start a new fanfic. The next morning, Boruto was sleeping soundly before he felt something shake him awake. "Brother, get up," called a voice. Boruto opened his eyes and saw his sister standing over him. "Nitsuko, what's going on?" asked Boruto. "You didn't set your alarm and you overslept," answered Nitsuko. "If we don't get going now, we'll miss the entrance ceremony." "Crap," was all Boruto said before jumping out of bed. Nitsuko left the room while Boruto got ready. Their father had already left. After getting dressed and bolting from his room, Boruto took a piece of toast handed to him by Hanabi and also retrieved his school bag from Hinata. "Do you think you'll make it on time?" asked Hinata as Boruto took the bag. "Don't worry about it," Boruto responded. Boruto bolted from the house with Nitsuko following closely behind. "Brother, how could you forget to set your alarm?" asked Nitsuko. "What are you kidding? That was my plan all along," grinned Boruto. "What do you mean?" asked Nitsuko. Boruto started jumping through the air. "The academy's gonna be a breeze, so I'm not going to worry too much about being on time," stated Boruto. "It was always my plan to sleep till the last minute then take the train to school. I can't think of a better way to start my easy life at the academy." "I thought you wanted to prove you were better than everyone," stated Nitsuko. "I do, but that's for after we become ninja," clarified Boruto. "With everything our parents have taught us, the academy's gonna be a breeze. The only real challenge is determining how much we should upstage the other students." "And you wonder why our mothers want me to keep an eye on you," groaned Nitsuko. They both landed on a power pole and gazed at an oncoming train. "Yup, there it is," chucked Boruto, before looking down at the street. "Hey Nitsuko, look." Nitsuko looked down and spotted Denki walking down the street. "It's that boy from yesterday," stated Nitsuko. There was something different about him, however. Denki seemed to be covered in some strange purple chakra. "What do you think that is?" asked Boruto. "What?" asked Nitsuko, confused. "That purple chakra surrounding him," stated Boruto. "Brother, he's not surrounded by anything," observed Nitsuko, unable to see what her brother was seeing. Unknown to both, one of Boruto's eyes had changed in appearance. The background was black and his blue eye had become much lighter. Boruto rubbed his eyes thinking he wasn't seeing properly, but when he opened his eyes, Denki was gone. "Where'd he go?" asked Boruto. Nitsuko looked back at the street. "I don't know," she answered. "Must be taking the train like us," chucked Boruto. "You know, I think he and I are gonna get along just fine." "If you say so," stated Nitsuko. They were about to jump on the train that would take them to the academy when Nitsuko noticed something odd. "Brother," she said, tugging on his sleeve and pointing. "What is it?" asked Boruto. Boruto looked to where she was pointing and saw 3 of the boys who had been bullying Denki the day before. "What are they doing here?" Boruto queried. Before an answer could be found, they noticed the boys hop on a train carriage that shut and took off the moment they stepped on. "I think we should follow them," said Boruto. "But we're gonna be late for the ceremony," stated Nitsuko. "I know, but something tells me something bad will happen if we don't," stated Boruto. "It might sound crazy, but I just feel we should follow them." Nitsuko didn't want to be late for the ceremony, but she also knew her mother might get angry at her if she let Boruto get into trouble. "All right, but as soon as it's resolved we go to the academy," said Nitsuko. Yeah, whatever," responded Boruto. The 2 of them ran after the train and jumped on the roof before it got away. Inside, the bullies heard a voice speak. "You guys are so simple." "Denki," the leader said, recognizing the voice. They walked into the next carriage and found Denki. "What are you thinking? Stop this," demanded the leader. "What's going on?" Denki went on to explain that they were on one of his father's prototype trains. It was one that included several defectives, so it wasn't in use with the other trains. As Denki said this, a piece of the carriage's roof flew off. Denki continued his explanation by telling them that there was another defective train car on the same rail track. No one was aboard this train, and it was set on a collision course with the current train. "You're kidding, right?" was all the leader bully could say in response. "Stop this," said a voice from above. Boruto and Nitsuko jumped down from the roof below to confront Denki. "Why are you two here?" asked Denki. "When we saw the train take off, we had a feeling something bad would happen," answered Nitsuko. "Aren't you supposed to be going to the entrance ceremony?" asked Boruto. "Who cares about that?" answered Denki. "I'm going to prove to my father that I am strong." "Don't you think this is taking it a little far?" asked Nitsuko, who was worried by the situation. "No, I have to gain his approval," answered Denki. "I have to prove that I'm strong." As Denki said this, Boruto briefly saw him covered with the same purple energy he'd seen before. He quickly shook it off as there were more important things to worry about. "You need to stop this," demanded Boruto. "Then make me," dared Denki. "The first rail switch is coming." Hearing this, Boruto ran to the window to look for the rail switch. Upon finding it, he opened the window and threw a kunai in an attempt to change the track. Sadly, the knife was a little off. "Damn," groaned Boruto. "Maybe I should have done it," added Nitsuko. Because she had the Byakugan, Nitsuko was a better aim than her brother. "Not the time, Nitsuko," groaned Boruto. "Well, that's too bad," interjected Denki. "What's happened to you?" demanded Boruto. Denki seemed completely different to the boy they met. Previously he had been a quiet and shy boy, now he seemed cold and heartless. "My father's word is absolute," was all Denki said in response. "I need his approval." "You don't need his approval," stated Boruto angrily. "Can't you do anything without worrying about how people will take it? You need to make your own decisions." As Boruto said this, a bit of life seemed to return to Denki's eyes. Denki then took a step back and winced as if he was in pain. "What's wrong?" asked Boruto, letting go of Denki. "Hey!" called one of the bullies, catching Boruto's attention. "The train's coming." Boruto looked ahead and indeed the train was closing in. "What do we do, brother?" asked Nitsuko. "I'm gonna use the shadow clone jutsu to try and change the track. If I fall, I'm counting on you to pull me back in," stated Boruto. "You can count on me," said Nitsuko confidently. Boruto nodded and was about to head to the roof of the train when he felt Denki grab his arm. "Why did I do this?" asked Denki, who seemed confused by the current situation. "Don't worry about it, just leave it to me," declared Boruto. Boruto jumped on the roof of the train, crossed his fingers and shouted, "Shadow Clone Jutsu." 3 clones of Boruto appeared out of puffs of smoke. They made a human ladder, with each clone grabbing the feet of the clone above them, with the original Boruto on the bottom. Boruto attempted to swing his clones towards the track but slipped and started to fall. "Brother!" called Nitsuko. Without thinking, Nitsuko crossed her fingers and yelled, "Shadow Clone Jutsu." Nitsuko also made 3 clones of her own, made a human ladder and caught her brother before he hit the ground. Seeing the bravery of the siblings, the purple energy left Denki's body, snapping him back to reality. Using all his strength, Boruto swung his clones at the rail switch. This ensured the train they were on changed tracks and allowed them to pass the oncoming train without colliding. Boruto let go of his clones and they disappeared. "Nitsuko, pull me in," ordered Boruto. "I'm trying," stated Nitsuko. Nitsuko didn't have as much upper body strength as her brother and was finding it difficult to pull him in with the addition of her shadow clones. Denki ran forward and grabbed Nitsuko to help her pull her brother back in. Seeing their struggle, the bullies ran forward to help as well. With all of them working together, they managed to get Boruto back on the train. At which point Nitsuko's clones disappeared. "Well, that was fun," sighed Boruto. "No, it wasn't," argued Denki. Brother, please be more careful next time, pleaded Natsuko. Okay, okay, I was only kidding, groaned Boruto. Everyone on the train laughed at this, but their laughter was short-lived when they heard the back carriage detach from the train and crash. What do we do? This train won't hold together for much longer, stated one of the bullies. We have to get to the other one, stated Denki. Let's go. Without hesitation, the bullies ran over to the remaining carriage, as Denki detached it from the front of the train. Come on, offered one of the bullies holding out his hand. Sorry, but we've got somewhere to be, stated Denki. We're late for the entrance ceremony, laughed Natsuko. And we won't get there by staying on the tracks, stated Boruto. Boruto pulled the train's lever, causing it to go off track onto the dirt. Meanwhile, at the entrance ceremony, the names for the attending students were being called. Boruto Uzumaki called Shino, the instructor who would be teaching Boruto's class. Boruto Uzumaki, where is he? Getting no response, Shino continued with the roll. Natsuko Uzumaki called Shino, hoping Boruto's sister had arrived on time. The kids started speaking amongst themselves. Hearing the name Uzumaki, they wondered if Shino was referring to the harem children. They were also discussing where they could be. Geez, Boruto, even I made it on time, yawned Shikadai Nara. Why am I not surprised? Groaned a boy with spiky dark pink hair and bushy eyebrows, wearing a red jumpsuit. You would have thought Natsuko would have gotten him here on time, said a girl called Chocho Akamichi, before turning to the boy. Don't you think metal? Considering she's the one who has to babysit him, they're only late because he is, groaned Metal Lee. Suddenly they heard something approach in the rocks above, and before long they saw a train carriage fly off the rocks and into the Hokage monument. Thankfully they missed any of the faces. Well, we made it, sighed Boruto, brushing dirt off himself. I don't think Dad's gonna be happy about this, stated Natsuko. Once I explain everything, I'm sure he'll understand, said Boruto. The siblings walked forward so they could be seen by all the onlookers. Boruto Uzumaki is here, Yano, introduced Boruto to the crowd. Sorry we're late, added Natsuko, embarrassed by her brother's antics. All the teachers looked up in embarrassment, but no one was more embarrassed than Naruto, who had left a clone on guard duty so he could attend his children's entrance ceremony. He knew it would take a long time for him to live down the embarrassment his children had caused. He also wouldn't be surprised if this pushed his chances of becoming Hokage back a few more years. Naruto, I'd like to speak with you after this is over, said 6th Hokage Kakashi Hatake, who was there to give a welcoming speech to the students. Yes, sensei, said an embarrassed Naruto. Out of nowhere, another shinobi appeared behind the siblings and Boruto instinctively attacked, but was quickly overpowered by the more experienced fighter. Brother, it's just Uncle Konohamaru, stated Natsuko, shaking her head. Oh right, sorry big bro, apologized Boruto. You don't look sorry, groaned Konohamaru. And from now on, call me sensei. Yeah, I'm not doing that, stated Boruto bluntly. Boruto, you're a real pain sometimes, groaned Konohamaru. Agreed, one you shouldn't have to deal with, said a voice. They turned to see Naruto had also jumped upon the wreckage. You head back down and help the others deal with this. I'll handle my kids, sighed Naruto. Are you sure, boss? Asked Konohamaru. I'm happy to give Boruto the punishment he deserves. I'm sure, because as their father this is as much my fault as it is theirs, said Naruto. Very well, said Konohamaru. He put Boruto down and jumped to the ground below. Now, you two have a lot of explaining to do, lectured Naruto, causing his kids to gulp. At that moment, Denki climbed out of the wreckage. Hey, Denki, are you okay? Asked Boruto. Look, we made it in time for the entrance ceremony. Who is this? Demanded Naruto. Did the two of you put another kid in danger? So what? We're fine, stated Boruto. That's not the point, snapped Naruto. Why did you do this? Boruto, I know you hate the village for how they treat us, but I thought you agreed to be the bigger person. And Nitsuko, I could see Boruto doing this, but I expected better from you. This has nothing to do with how the village treats us, argued Boruto. Then what is it about? Because I know you wouldn't do something this extreme without a good reason, stated Naruto. Boruto glanced at Nitsuko and Denki before looking back to his father. I promise to tell you everything, but you have to promise me something first, said Boruto. Naruto crossed his arms. I'm listening. Promise me that Nitsuko and Denki won't be punished. This was mostly my fault, and I deserve to take the blame, stated Boruto. Brother, interjected Nitsuko. You already deal with too much from the Leaf Village, you shouldn't have to deal with extra problems because of this, whispered Boruto. As for Denki, something tells me he wasn't himself so he shouldn't have to face consequences. Are you sure? Whispered Nitsuko. I'm sure, whispered Boruto. Okay, conceded Nitsuko. Boruto turned back to his father. Those are my terms, Dad, accept them or I don't tell you anything. Naruto was surprised by this. He was still embarrassed by his son's actions, but he couldn't help but also feel pride over him standing up for those he cared about. Alright, I promise that you'll be the only one who gets punished, said Naruto. But before you tell me anything, let's get to solid ground, it's not safe up here. They all jumped down to the ground below, allowing others to come and remove the train from the monument. Boruto told his father everything. How he had met Denki the day before and how today he had seemed like a completely different person. Like he was possessed. He also mentioned the purple chakra he saw but also stated that he was the only one who had seen it. Naruto asked if Boruto hadn't just been seeing things, but Boruto followed this up by saying he had seen it more than once. He couldn't explain how, but only he had been able to see it. Naruto knew Boruto wasn't one to lie, so despite the lack of facts he felt this was worth investigating. Because of his actions Boruto ended up suspended for 2 weeks. In the meantime, he would be homeschooled by his mother so he wouldn't fall behind. Nitsuko tried to argue that she too should be suspended as Boruto's co-conspirator, but Naruto kept to his promise and ensured that Boruto was the only one to be punished. Instead, she was instructed to attend the academy as planned, as people felt it was best for her to be away from her brother's influence for a while. Once the incident had been cleared up, Naruto headed to the Hokage's office. Sensei, may I come in? Asked Naruto, peeking his head through the door of Kakashi's office. Yes, please come in, sighed Kakashi. Your kids have caused a lot of problems for me today, Naruto. You think you got problems? I've been spending the last 12 years trying to rebuild my reputation and something tells me this was a huge setback, groaned Naruto. It was. Not only do people now think you're disgusting for having 2 wives, but they're also questioning your abilities as a parent, stated Kakashi. Geez, am I ever going to catch a break? Even after I saved the entire world, people still pick at everything I do, sighed Naruto. I understand your frustration. Unfortunately, all it takes is one scandal to ruin someone's reputation, said Kakashi. Yeah, but it's not like I did anything illegal or immoral. I'm not saying I deserve 2 wives because I saved the world, but you'd think that fact would be enough for people to let it slide, stated Naruto. Normally I would agree, but as you may or may not remember, the reason the public took issue with this relationship had to do with your ambitions to become Hokage. As we're trying to move into a new era, we're trying to stop practices considered outdated, said Kakashi. Yeah, I know. Having a Hokage with 2 wives would make me look tyrannical and make the village look like a dictatorship. I've heard it all before, stated Naruto. I only repeat it because you seem to keep forgetting, argued Kakashi. It's more that I'm annoyed people can't see the benefit of me having enough love in my heart for 2 women, said Naruto. Indeed, one could argue it shows you have more love to give than most, said Kakashi. More to the point, I called you in here to discuss the incident with the train. And not just because I feel it's pushed back my retirement. I also feel this has further decreased my chances of becoming Hokage, but more to the point, Boruto didn't do this because of his hatred for the village, said Naruto. Kakashi looked at Naruto curiously as his former student told him everything Boruto said about the incident. You think this is worth investigating? Asked Boruto. Maybe not yet. We may have to wait for further proof to make sure this wasn't an isolated incident, said Kakashi. I'm most curious about the purple chakra Boruto claims to have seen surrounding Denki. He said he was the only one who could see this, correct? That's right, said Naruto. Ask him to let you know if he ever sees it again, requested Kakashi. It won't disprove he wasn't imagining it, but it will hopefully add proof to this not being an isolated incident. Yes, sensei, said Naruto. After the 2 weeks were over, Boruto approached the academy for his official first day. Nitsuko was walking to school with him. Man, I'm glad my suspension is finally over, sighed Boruto. I just hope you haven't fallen too far behind, added Nitsuko. You don't have to worry about that. With the amount of study my mum was giving me, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm ahead of the academy, groaned Boruto. So much for my easy life at the academy. If you came here for an easy life, then you came to the wrong place, called a voice. Boruto and Nitsuko turned to see Metal Lee standing behind them. Chocho Akamichi was with him. Hey Metal, it's been a while, greeted Boruto. Spare me the pleasantries, this academy is for hardworking students who would protect this village with their life, spat Metal Lee. It has no need for someone like you. Metal and Chocho walked past them and into the academy. I've never understood what his problem is with you, stated Nitsuko. Probably because both him and his dad consider hard work the most important aspect of being a ninja, said Boruto. It's not my fault, I'm just naturally awesome. Still, you'd think with a father like Rock Lee he'd be a bit more pleasant, added Nitsuko. Hey, you've met his mother. He might have his father's work ethic, but he gets the rest of his personality from his mother, groaned Boruto. But Miss Sakura has never been cold to you like he has, stated Nitsuko. Probably because she's dad's former teammate. Still, you'd think Metal would also respect me more because of that, stated Boruto. Well, whatever, I'm here now and nothing he says is going to convince me to quit. That's the brother I know and love, exclaimed Nitsuko happily. They continued to the entrance of the academy when they spotted Denki waving at them. Hey you guys, he called. What are you doing here? I thought you weren't going to study at the academy. Queried Boruto. I wasn't, confirmed Denki. But seeing you guys in action helped me see that ninjutsu is actually really cool, and with me taking over my dad's company one day, I want to find a way to combine technology with ninjutsu. Well, if that's the path you want to take, I say go for it, said Boruto. And I'll help you with whatever you need, exclaimed Nitsuko. Thanks, you guys, stated Denki. As they entered the academy, Boruto stopped walking and looked up at the Hokage monument. I'm going to prove to everyone here that they were wrong for the way they treated my family, thought Boruto proudly. I'm going to prove I'm better than all of them. As Boruto walked into the academy with his sister, cousin Nitsuko, he was determined to make his mark at the academy. He was hoping the students there would be welcoming, but before he had even entered the classroom he could see many of his classmates whispering among themselves. Boruto could only guess what they were whispering about, but he had a feeling it had something to do with the stunt he had pulled with the train 2 weeks earlier. He had a feeling that everyone believed the only reason he was allowed to continue at the academy was because of his father's association with the Hokage. Truth be told, he didn't care what they thought, as he knew he was going to prove them wrong. He also knew their tones would be different if they knew the real reason he had been aboard the train. In the end, Boruto just believed he had made a bad first impression, which he was determined to fix during his time at the academy. Upon looking at Nitsuko, however, his suspicions changed. She too was looking at the other students and she looked very sad. Boruto initially thought that maybe Nitsuko was sad that she didn't make a bigger effort to stand up for her brother, but he knew there were other possibilities. Were the other students mistreating her because of how she was born? Boruto had a feeling he would find out soon enough. Before long they entered the classroom and Boruto decided to introduce himself. Although he still hated the majority of the Leaf Village, his parents had advised he be nice to his classmates and hopefully they would be nice back. Furthermore, now that he had met and befriended Denki, Boruto was hoping more students would be welcoming to him and his sister. He had a feeling it was more their parents who had hostility to his family. Boruto decided to introduce himself with a positive attitude. Hi everyone, I'm Boruto Uzumaki. Nice to meet you. I'd keep your voice down if I were you, a voice grumbled. After the stunt you pulled, I'd show some restraint and keep a low profile. They turned and saw Shikadai sitting at one of the desks. Well Shikadai, we can't change the past, so I don't think we should worry about it, chucked Boruto. Where do I sit? You can sit in whatever seat is free, answered Denki sitting down next to Shikadai. Sounds good to me, said Boruto sitting next to Denki. The desks at the academy only allowed for 3 students each, so being unable to sit next to her brother, Natsuko decided to sit at the desk directly next to him. Unfortunately, as she went to sit down, any other student already sitting fled to other desks. Natsuko sat down and sadly sighed. What's going on there? Asked Boruto. You didn't hear? Asked Denki. Hear what? Asked Boruto. On the first day of class, some idiot tried to provoke her. She warned him not to push her and he responded with, why does the little bastard need daddy to protect her, stated Shikadai. He ended up in the hospital, didn't he? Asked Boruto. Yep. Thankfully she didn't get suspended because everyone confirmed she wasn't the instigator, stated Shikadai. That would explain why she came home upset that day and why my aunt was yelling at her, stated Boruto. Long story short, everyone's afraid of her now, added Denki. This angered Boruto. If people were just a little nicer to their family, they'd cause no trouble within the village. While Boruto suffered the occasional mean comment of being a harem brat, the way they treated his sister made his blood boil. To treat Natsuko like less of a person just because her mother wasn't legally married to their father felt unfair. Especially when considering Naruto always referred to both Hinata and Hanabi as his wives. Not wanting his sister to be alone, Boruto got up from the desk and sat next to Natsuko. She immediately smiled upon seeing him sit down and hugged him. Natsuko, not in public, groaned Boruto. Sorry brother. Natsuko laughed, letting him go. A few rows back the siblings were being observed by another trio of students. Those Uzumaki siblings sure seem close, said a purple-haired girl called Sumire who was also the class representative. What do you expect, one's a lazy brat and the other's seen as the result of an illegitimate love affair, spat Metal Lee looking through his notes. That's a bit harsh Metal, aren't you guys childhood friends? Asked Chocho who was sitting next to him. My mum was teammates with his dad, that's it. My dad was also teammates with a relative of theirs that died during the war, answered Metal. Frankly I don't like being associated with them. Natsuko's okay, but Boruto's just a lazy brat who doesn't deserve to be here. Maybe he just seems lazy when compared to his father. Wondered Chocho out loud. Regardless of what you think of his married life, only the hardest worker in the world could achieve what he has. At that moment a boy with blue eyes and blonde hair pulled into a ponytail, dressed in a purple shirt and white overalls walked past them. This was Inojin, son of Ino and Sai. Only here because the Hokage has a soft spot for his student, huh? The boy said out loud. Inojin? Queried Sumire, worried that Boruto would hear him. Ops, did I just say that out loud? Stated Inojin, thinking he'd been silent. He stood in between the desks, where Boruto and Denki sat. Inojin, that was rude, take that back, ordered Shikadai. Sorry, I wasn't meaning to be rude, apologized Inojin. But that's just what everyone's been saying. Let's face it, if anyone else had caused that runaway train they would have been expelled for sure. It wasn't brothers. Natsuko trailed off as Boruto put a hand on her shoulder and shook his head. Inojin, you know that's not what happened, interjected Shikadai. I guess, stated Inojin. By the way, Boruto, Nitsuko, it's been a while. You guys know each other? Asked Denki. Our parents are all friends, answered Shikadai. But that's not important. What is important is that we can be friends. Right, Inojin? Queried Boruto, holding out his hand to shake. Inojin's parents had always supported the Uzumaki family, so Boruto was hoping he'd be more welcoming. Without hesitation, Inojin slapped his hand away. You're not worthy of my friendship, spat Inojin. But my father always tells me it's important to keep a lady company. And my mother tells me it's important to be a good role model. So, I think I'll sit with the two of you to ensure your sister has a good influence to counteract the bad. Brother isn't a bad influence, stated Nitsuko. You only say that because you love him, argued Inojin. At that moment the door opened, and the instructor Shino walked in. The class stood in respect for their instructor. Before either could object, Inojin stood next to Nitsuko. Classes went on like normal for the day. This eventually led to an obstacle course that would allow them to test every student's basic strengths and weaknesses. To the surprise of many, Boruto was outstanding. He completed the course with not only great speed, but also with great ease. Nitsuko did nearly as well. Boruto, you're amazing, called Denki, running over with a computer. Your time was the second best in the entire class. And Nitsuko, you're only 2 places behind him in 4th. What? I'm not at the top? Asked Boruto, completely ignoring Denki's compliment. Boruto looked at the computer to read the name placed above his. It read Iwabe Ueno. He could also see Nitsuko had placed just below Metal Lee. So where is this guy? Asked Boruto, looking around. I don't think he's here today. Though that doesn't surprise me, he's constantly saying he shouldn't have to waste his time with amateurs like us, answered Denki. Boruto turned to Nitsuko. Do you know who this guy is? I've seen him around, but he doesn't seem like a very nice boy. In fact, he looked at me with more disgust than I've ever seen before, answered Nitsuko. Nitsuko was used to getting disgusted looks from the other villagers, but the way she talked about Iwabe made Boruto fear that he'd looked at her the worst. Before long the lunch bell rang and Boruto, Shikadai, Denki and Nitsuko headed back to the classroom to eat. Man, I'm hungry, said Boruto. That's one trait you definitely got from Dad, laughed Nitsuko. Yeah, groaned Boruto. They saw another group that consisted of 3 other boys. Hey, are you guys having lunch? Mind if we join? Requested Boruto. Sorry, we're going to the rooftop, said the largest of the 3 boys. You should go quickly too, said another boy. Without explaining why, the 3 boys bolted out of the classroom. What's their problem? Wondered Boruto. Well, whatever, let's eat. Go somewhere else, called a voice. You're bothering me. The 4 of them looked around the classroom until they spotted an older boy who had sat up. I'm using this room right now, the boy added. Who's this guy? Asked Boruto. That's Iwabe, the boy we were telling you about before, answered Nitsuko. The one who got the top score on the obstacle course? Asked Boruto. Yeah, but he's also referred to as Iwabe the Repeater, added Denki. They call him that because rumor has it, he failed the graduation exam twice, interjected Shikadai. No wonder you're the best at the obstacle course, laughed Boruto. Nice to meet you. Don't get friendly with me. You, filthy little harem brat, spat Iwabe. My parents' marriage is none of your business, retorted Boruto angrily. Without warning, Iwabe jumped down from the desks and grabbed Boruto by the collar. Well, I don't like the idea of having a guy like you hanging around, threatened Iwabe. Let go of my brother, demanded Nitsuko. Iwabe looked at her with utter disgust. I hate the idea of having you around here even more, Iwabe spat. As this was being said, some of the other students began returning to the classroom. You're both eyesores, continued Iwabe before turning back to Boruto. You're only here because the Hokage has a soft spot for his former student. I can accept that, but your sister shouldn't be here at all. Accepting the harem brat is one thing, but the harem bastard shouldn't be allowed within 100 feet of the academy. At this point Boruto wasn't concerned about Iwabe. He turned to Natsuko and could see she was trying harder than normal to keep her temper in check. I'd watch your mouth if I were you, warned Boruto. With no care Iwabe threw Boruto at the teacher's desk. Like I care. You're not even worth my time. Your threats mean nothing to me, spat Iwabe. It's not me you should be worried about, retorted Boruto looking at his sister. Everyone's attention went to Natsuko who seemed to be using all her willpower to stay calm. What? Do you have a problem with being called a bastard? Taunted Iwabe at Natsuko. You can't get angry at me for stating a fact. If you have a problem with me, come at me. I can't. My mum told me a ninja has to keep calm in all situations, stated Natsuko. Oh, you mean your mother who isn't even married to your father? Questioned Iwabe. It doesn't matter if they aren't married. My dad loves my mother and that's all that matters, argued Natsuko. Is it? Was she your father's first love? Asked Iwabe before pointing at Boruto. Because last I checked your father's married to and loved his mother first. Mum says it doesn't matter. All that matters is that he loves her as well and that we're a big happy family, argued Natsuko. Didn't your mother cause problems for your family by falling in love with your father? I've heard the rumors. She was banished from the Hyuga clan for her actions. I also heard she was supposed to be branded with the caged bird seal, but was saved upon taking your father's last name, stated Iwabe. Have you even met your grandfather, the head of the Hyuga clan? Joke's on you, we see our grandfather regularly, added Boruto before remembering how their grandfather acted while they were around. A little too regularly if you ask me. That doesn't change the fact that you're nothing but a disgusting bastard and you're nothing compared to me, spat Iwabe at Natsuko. I wouldn't if I were you, warned Boruto. Natsuko may be younger than me, but her skills aren't far off mine. And when she's angry, she's a force to be reckoned with. Like I care. I don't care how strong she is, even the teachers are impressed with my taijutsu skills, which means you're nothing compared to me. You're all nothing compared to me, declared Iwabe to the whole class. Oh yeah? Then why did you fail? Mocked Boruto. What's the point of studying useless theory like the rest of you? As long as you're strong, a ninja can get away with anything, declared Iwabe. It's the only reason your father got away with starting a harem. By becoming the strongest ninja in the world, he felt he was entitled to do whatever he wanted. Even if it was seen as disgraceful in the eyes of the shinobi. He knew no one would harm him or his mates, out of fear of retaliation. Remembering the courage Boruto and Natsuko showed, Denki spoke up. But Iwabe, Naruto Uzumaki became the strongest ninja in the world to protect people not to. Iwabe didn't let Denki finish. Shut up. Just because someone is strong doesn't mean they should be allowed to do something as disgusting and old-fashioned as starting a harem. And the spawns of a harem are just as disgusting as those who practice it, spat Iwabe. The fact that the Hokage allowed either of these freaks to attend the academy is disgusting, but allowing the bastard to attend is not only disgraceful to the academy, but the entire village. Boruto was about to say something before Natsuko spoke up. I'm not the only child to be born out of wedlock. Why should the fact that my parents aren't married affect whether I belong here? Demanded Natsuko, who was at the end of her rope. Normally it wouldn't. It's the fact that you were born from a harem. Just because your father is strong, he thinks it's okay to have more than one partner. What's worse, he was already married to someone else when you were born. It doesn't matter how you spin it. Your mother is nothing more than his mistress and you're a disgusting bastard who should have never been born, spat Iwabe. In fact, the only reason the village tolerates your existence is because of your father's strength. If it weren't for the fact that the other villagers valued their lives, you probably would have been killed before birth. Take that back, demanded Natsuko. No, because it doesn't matter how hard you try or how strong you get, you'll only ever be remembered as the harem bastard. At that moment Nitsuko remembered the moments where her insecurities had caused problems for her family. The first happened a few years ago, where she had unlocked her Byakugan out of anger. A younger Nitsuko was sitting in the hospital waiting room, crying as her three parents were talking to the parents of a patient. It had all happened so suddenly that Nitsuko could barely remember what happened. Her mother and aunt had taken her and her brother to play in the playground. Sakura and Tamari were also there, having brought Metal and Shikadai. They had been playing tag with Nitsuko being it. She had been struggling to catch her brother, and she knew Metal would be impossible to catch. She'd opted against going after Shikadai, as he just sat down most games and refused to move. Nitsuko was in the process of chasing her brother. She'd nearly caught him, but he took a quick turn, causing her to tumble and run into an older boy. "Sorry," said Nitsuko, regaining her footing and bowing. The older boy initially appeared to shrug it off, but once he looked at Nitsuko his expression changed. While he had never interacted with the Uzumaki family himself, they were well known throughout the village and most recognized them instantly. It was also well known that the bastard of the family had the white Hyuga eyes that lacked pupils, spiky brown hair and whisker marks. While many people had come to accept Naruto's polygamous relationship over the years, there were a few who still looked at it with disgust. They were particularly disgusted by Nitsuko, as she was seen as the illegitimate child of Naruto's mistress. "Aren't you the harem bastard?" the boy spat. Nitsuko had heard the whispers about her from others and was aware what the term bastard meant, but at this moment it only upset her as opposed to making her angry. "I would prefer it if you didn't call me that," she requested. "My name is Nitsuko. And I should care because..." The boy spat. "My parents told me the only name you're worthy of is harem bastard. I'll call you bastard for short." Nitsuko had a feeling there was no reasoning with this guy, so she turned to leave. The boy stopped her by grabbing her by the shoulder. "Did I say you could leave, bastard?" he demanded. "I asked you nicely not to call me that," squeaked Nitsuko. "Why shouldn't I? Your mum and dad aren't married, so it's what you are," he retorted. "Dad told me it doesn't matter that he and my mum aren't married, she's still his wife," stated Nitsuko. "No, she isn't. At best, she's his mistress. In fact, my father said something that perfectly described her. Naruto's personal." Nitsuko didn't know what meant, but she didn't like the sound of it. "Don't you dare insult my mum," demanded Nitsuko, getting angry. "Why? Will she hurt me if I do?" teased the boy. "Does the bastard need that to come protect her?" At that point Nitsuko lost all self-control. She failed to recognize her sight changing as veins started to pop up around her eyes. The next thing she knew, she was being held back by her brother and Metal Lee, and the boy was lying in front of her out cold. Her aunt and Sakura were checking to see if the boy was okay, while her mother was arguing with who Nitsuko could only assume was the boy's mother. Nitsuko couldn't believe it. Had she just attacked someone in blind rage? Seeing Nitsuko had calmed down, the boy's mother started yelling at her for what she'd done, and Hanabi stepped in between them to defend. Nitsuko, however, wasn't paying any attention to what was being said, as she was still trying to figure out how she had done what she did. Before she knew it, she was sitting in the hospital waiting area. Her brother had been sent to spend the night with their grandfather. Her father had arrived and all three of her parents were now arguing with the boy's parents. While hospitals were supposed to be kept quiet, the boy's parents were so enraged, Nitsuko could hear everything that was being said. The more she heard, the harder she cried. "This is unacceptable. Because of your daughter, my boy may be permanently injured," cried the mother. "While I can understand wanting to teach your kids how to fight at a young age, that girl is completely out of control. I want her banned from ever becoming a ninja." Normally Naruto would become enraged at someone threatening his children, but he knew that if he retaliated it would only make things worse for him and his family. Kakashi also advised that it would become harder to defend him if he kept doing stuff to anger the public. Therefore, using all the energy he could, Naruto stayed calm. I understand you're upset over your son being hurt, but did you ever stop to hear Natsuko's side of the story? Queried Naruto. Why should we? Our boy's an angel, he'd never instigate a fight, unlike your bratty daughter, she accused. What did you say? Demanded Hanabi before Naruto put his arm out to stop her. Hanabi was very quick to defend her daughter. Hanabi, why don't you tell them what Natsuko told you? Requested Naruto. Hanabi nodded her head and calmed down. Natsuko says she can't really remember what happened, but she claims your boy was insulting and threatening her, stated Hanabi. Apparently, he was calling her the harem bastard. Now tell me, where did he learn that behavior? You can't blame us for that, interjected the father. Everyone whispers that around the village, he could have picked it up from anyone. What about calling me Naruto's personal? Queried Hanabi. The parents looked at each other, knowing they'd have difficulty talking their way out of this one. At least we're raising our boy right, spat the mother. We're raising him to know it's wrong to sleep with your wife's sister and impregnate her. Naruto groaned at this. Despite their relationship being public for many years now, many closed-minded villagers simply believed that Naruto had had an affair with Hanabi around the time of Natsuko's conception and refused to believe she was his wife. That doesn't give you the right to teach your son to treat my daughter like trash, stated Hanabi. How Natsuko was born is none of your concern. Strong words from a who slept with her sister's husband, spat the mother, giving Hanabi a death glare. Hey! Shouted Naruto. Don't you dare talk to my wife like that. She isn't your wife, and referring to her as such is teaching a bad lesson to the future generation. It's making them believe it's okay to take on a second partner, just because they aren't satisfied with one. What you three practice is not only disgusting, but also offensive to all the women of the Leaf Village, stated the father. It doesn't matter how hard you fought to bring peace to the world, how could you think it was okay to have an affair with your sister-in-law? Hinata was about to step in, but Naruto shook his head as he knew arguing with them was pointless. I've heard all I need to hear. I'll talk to my daughter when we get home about the importance of keeping her anger in check. Furthermore, now that we know my daughter has the Byakugan, I'll be sending her to her grandfather to help her get it under control, stated Naruto. Why would he help you? Asked the mother. Didn't he disown both his daughters because of their relationship with you? I'll admit he wasn't happy at first, but the love a grandfather has for his grandchildren can overcome anything, answered Naruto. In fact, my son is with him right now. Whatever, but I better not see that girl at the academy in the future or there will be hell to pay, stated the man. Excuse me, but that isn't your decision to make, objected Naruto. That decision is for my daughter. If Natsuko wants to attend the academy, we'll enroll her immediately, interjected Hanabi. Not if we can help it, spat the father. We're going to tell Lord Hokage what's happened here, and even he won't be able to deny that your daughter is a menace to society. Hopefully, this will lead to all you disgusting freaks being kicked out of the village like you should have been years ago, the mother threatened. At this moment, there was nothing Naruto wanted more than to tear these two to pieces. He was used to people bad-mouthing him, but hearing others bad-mouth the women he loved and their children brought out more anger than he thought was possible. He was grateful for Kakashi's leadership training. It had taught him to keep his anger in check during situations like this. He feared, however, that this time his anger would get the better of him. Don't make threats you can't enforce, interjected a voice. Everyone looked to see Kakashi approaching them, followed closely by Ino. While they weren't currently aware of why she was there, the Uzumaki parents had a pretty good idea of what her purpose was. Sensei? Asked Naruto. Evening Naruto, sighed Kakashi. I was hoping to avoid situations like this, but unfortunately I also knew they were inevitable. Lord Sixth, interrupted the mother. I want these freaks banished from the village for what they did to my son. Because of that filthy bastard, my precious little Angle might never recover. Kakashi put a hand up to silence her. I've heard everything that happened, but there's no point in getting angry. What's done is done. Furthermore, I'd rather you don't make assumptions about what I'm going to do. That being said, you are right in saying that the Uzumaki's future in this village rests on my shoulders. Well, surely you can see that these freaks aren't fit to live in the village, accused the mother, pointing at the Uzumakis. But if you think that's too harsh, you should at least ban the children from becoming ninja. Clearly, they are out of control and unnecessarily violent and will only damage the future of the village. I understand your pain, but I would prefer to gather all the facts before I make a decision, stated Kakashi. What's there to decide? That freak put my son in the hospital because she's a violent brat, spat the mother. Hinata had to hold Hanabi in place as she was starting to shake with anger. Perhaps, stated Kakashi, but I've also had many witnesses tell me that Nitsuko wasn't the instigator. They said your boy was antagonizing her, which is what led to her attacking him. Well, whoever told you that was lying, declared the mother. My son would never antagonize someone without good reason. Lord Sixth, please see reason, interjected the father. I know you have a soft spot for your former student and want to support him despite his decisions, but you can't just excuse that girl's behavior without any proof. You can't call yourself a leader if you're biased in your decisions. I never said I was, stated Kakashi. I gather facts before making decisions. Thankfully, I sent for someone who should be able to shed some light on the situation. He then turned to Ino. Allow me to introduce Ino of the Yamanaka clan. As you know, her clan specializes in mind-related techniques, and she's agreed to do a mind walk of Nitsuko's memories to see who is telling the truth about today's events. Explained Kakashi. What will that prove? Spat the father, crossing his arms. By reading Nitsuko's mind we should be able to discover who's at fault. Interjected Naruto. That won't prove anything. That filthy bastard is clearly remembering things wrong, so we won't know the real story if it's shown from her perspective, claimed the mother. While Naruto was annoyed by this, Kakashi had a solution. Very well, what if we performed the mind walk on your son? Queried Kakashi. This infuriated the parents. Are you insane? Our son is lying there injured and unconscious and you want us to let this woman scan his mind just to see if he bullied that girl? Asked the mother. Not that it would do you any good. All it would prove is that my boy was injured for no good reason. If you've got nothing to hide, I don't see what the problem is. Questioned Kakashi. Fine, perform the mind walk. All it will prove is that that girl's a monster who should be kept away from others, spat the father. Would the mind walk even work on someone who's unconscious? The mother smugly asked. Actually, it will be easier for me to do the technique on someone who's unconscious, added Ino, who was also getting annoyed by their attitude. Then go ahead, all it will prove is our son's an angle and that girl is a brat, spat the mother. Naruto, Ino and the boy's parents headed into the boy's room. Hinata and Hanabi were about to follow when the boy's mother stopped and glared at them. I don't want that anywhere near my son, the mother spat at Hanabi. Do not talk to my wife like that, growled Naruto. Naruto, lectured Kakashi. Sorry sensei, but I have to say this, stated Naruto before turning to the parents. You might not view her as my wife, but I do, and you'll treat her with respect. That being said, Hinata, Hanabi, maybe it would be best if you wait outside. I agree, said Hinata. Hanabi wanted to protest, but Hinata gave her a look that said it would be better to let Naruto handle this. In the end, Hanabi nodded and agreed to wait outside. It was at times like this, Hanabi was glad to have Hinata and Naruto around. Had she been forced to confront these parents on her own, she likely would have done something she'd regret. The rest of them entered the room to find the bully bandaged up and unconscious. Without another word uttered, Ino stepped in front of the boy, put her hands in front of his head and performed her mind walk jutsu. Everyone was quiet for a few minutes as Ino read the boy's memory. Eventually, she finished and turned to face the crowd. So, you can prove that little bastard is lying, and my angel did nothing wrong? Asked the mother smugly. Ino took a breath before answering. While she hadn't approved of Naruto's relationship at first, she had come to accept it and held no ill will against Naruto, Hinata, Hanabi or their children. Ino particularly hated it when people were disrespectful to Natsuko, because she knew that at heart Natsuko was a kind, sweet girl. She remained professional and answered as calmly as possible. No, in fact all it's done has confirmed Natsuko's story. He was provoking her and eventually she snapped. She even tried to walk away, but he wouldn't let her. Oh, please, how do we know you're telling the truth? Spat the father. You could just be making that up. Ino turned back to the bully and placed her hands on his head again. Put your hands on my back, requested Ino. Why? Asked the mother. If you think I'm lying I can show you the truth, answered Ino. The parents walked up and placed their hands on Ino's back. Ino activated her jutsu again and all three of them were transferred into the memories of the bully. From here they were able to see that Natsuko had in fact been telling the truth, the bully had been the instigator and Natsuko had even tried to walk away before the situation escalated. Ino stopped the memory just as Natsuko was about to attack the bully and they all came back to reality. There, now do you believe your son was the one at fault? Asked Ino. Of course we don't, spat the mother. I literally showed you his memory of what happened. What more do you want? Groaned Ino. I don't think that was his real memory, stated the mother. You only showed us what you wanted us to see. What? Asked Ino confused. Don't play dumb with us, spat the father. Did you really think we don't know who you are? We know you went to the academy with Naruto and you're friends with him, his wife and his mistress. You obviously altered my son's memory to keep the bastard out of trouble. Are you questioning my integrity? Demanded Ino, hands on her hips. Ino, that's enough, interjected Kakashi. They might not believe you, but I do, and I've heard all I need to know who the real victim is. In light of this, I've come to the following decision. Not only are the Uzumaki family still allowed to remain in the village, but their daughter Natsuko Uzumaki is still permitted to attend the academy if that is the path she chooses to take. Lord Sixth, that is unacceptable, growled the mother. I wasn't finished. You best hope your son had no ambitions to be a ninja, because based on his actions I've decided he's the one who isn't worthy of being one. Your son is forbidden from attending the ninja academy and is prohibited from even practicing jutsu within the village. The parents were speechless from this. You can't do that, argued the mother. Oh, but I can. As Hokage I must do what is in the best interests of the village. And I know the last thing we need is people like your son defending the village, stated Kakashi. And just so you know, you can ask any member of my clan, and they'll tell you the exact same thing I did about your son's actions, added Ino. Ino, Naruto and Kakashi were about to leave, but the parents weren't finished. You haven't heard the end of this. You may be the Hokage, but the other village leaders can have you removed from office if they deem you unfit for leadership, stated the father. And based on the biased attitude you showed today, you can't be trusted to properly punish the people you're close to. The Hokage needs to be fair to all the villagers, which you can't be trusted to do. Naruto turned back to the parents. While he still appeared calm, he was now so angry his eyes had gone red. Kakashi would normally stop Naruto when he was like this, but this time he let it slide as he had a feeling the bully's parents were about to learn a lesson they'd never forget. You're the ones who treat others unfairly, growled Naruto. Ever since I arrived, all you've done is insulted me, my children and the women I love. All of whom until now did nothing to you. Not only that, you are clearly blind to what's in front of you. We have many eyewitnesses confirming your son is the instigator and a Yamanaka was able to provide extra proof of your son's guilt. Yet you still refuse to acknowledge your son's guilt and have the nerve to not only question the integrity of a respected shinobi, but a member of a respected clan. Integrity is easy to question when she's friends with the family of the one that's guilty, claimed the mother. Why you? Growled Naruto. Naruto, that's enough, interjected Kakashi. You're angry and not thinking straight. Let me handle this. Naruto took a breath and calmed down. No wonder those kids can't control themselves. Their father needs people around to stop him from being violent, stated the mother. You clearly don't know Naruto very well, because if you did, you'd know he's shown a lot of restraint today, stated Kakashi. Furthermore, because you refuse to see reason, you've forced me to take drastic measures. What do you mean? Asked the father. I left a shadow clone at the office to continue my work and I had him pull your files while we were talking. Both of you come from families that have been shinobi for generations, correct? Asked Kakashi. That's right, which means we know how to tell an honest person from a liar, stated the father. Well, I hope you had a backup plan, because as of right now both of you are discharged. You are no longer shinobi of the Leaf Village, declared Kakashi. You can't do that, cried the mother. I already have, stated Kakashi. It's as you said, the Hokage needs to be trusted to run the village fairly. In turn, the Hokage also needs people he can trust to help him protect the village. Your actions today have proven that I can't trust either of you to give the village the protection it needs. Especially when you feel no guilt towards rudely judging an innocent child and refuse to see your own failures as parents. But how are we supposed to support ourselves? Asked the mother. Maybe ask yourself that the next time you teach your son that it's okay to bully others, answered Kakashi calmly. Thank you for your time, I hope your son gets better. Kakashi, Naruto and Ino then left. They met up with Hinata and Hanabi outside. Kakashi thanked Ino for her help and allowed her to leave. Thank you, sensei, said Naruto. Unfortunately, Naruto, I can't accept your thank you, stated Kakashi. I was only able to get you out of this because your daughter wasn't the instigator. Remember, as Hokage I must remain unbiased, meaning that had your daughter been at fault there would have been nothing I could do to help you. That doesn't mean we can't be grateful, interjected Hanabi. You collected evidence and determined who was actually at fault. I have a feeling there aren't many in the village who would be willing to do that for us. Like I said, it's my job to be unbiased, said Kakashi. That being said, my public support for you affects me, meaning the actions you and your children take affect me. I know, sensei, I'm sorry we caused you so much trouble, said Naruto. It's okay, you're clearly going above and beyond to remain calm and professional, which helps others see you're good people, and considering what some say about your family, I know that can't be easy, stated Kakashi. Also, today we proved your kids aren't naturally violent, which should hopefully help us in the long run. As you say, it should all work out in the end, sighed Naruto. Indeed, let's just hope it comes sooner rather than later, said Kakashi. Look, I have to get back to the office, are you all good from here? We should be fine, said Hinata. Kakashi nodded and left. Naruto, Hinata and Hanabi were about to go collect Nitsuko, but the parents of the bully had one more thing to say. My son didn't say anything that wasn't true. Your daughter is a disgusting bastard that should have never been born, and her mother is nothing but shouted the mother. Hanabi was prepared to attack them, but Hinata managed to calm her younger sister down before she did anything. Hanabi then left with Naruto. Just so you know, I was the one who invited her to join our relationship, stated Hinata before leaving with them. They walked into the waiting room and went to a still crying Nitsuko. Come on, honey, let's go home, requested Naruto. Nitsuko stood up. She was too ashamed to face either of her parents, so she ran to her aunt. Hanabi looked at Nitsuko sadly. She wanted nothing more than to comfort her daughter, but knew at the same time she had to punish her, which felt wrong as she'd merely been standing up for herself. The four of them walked home, with Hinata holding Nitsuko's hand. They entered and Naruto said the following. Nitsuko, go to your room, I'll be in shortly. Without saying a word, Nitsuko let go of Hinata and bolted to her bedroom. Maybe I should go in with you, offered Hanabi. No, I think this is a talk I need to have with her. She knows you love her more than anything, but I think she needs to know that I love her and that no matter what, she'll always be my daughter, stated Naruto. Still, We always knew this could be a problem, interjected Hinata. Many of the villages were angered by our relationship with Hanabi. Her pregnancy only created more anger. They shouldn't direct their anger at Nitsuko. I'm the one who asked to be a part of this relationship, I'm the reason she was born, they should be angry at me, stated Hanabi. Hanabi, they shouldn't treat any of us like this. This relationship was decided between all of us. If they were truly good people, they would accept this. And many people have. We have many close friends who have done nothing but support us. Even father came around and has been nothing but a loving grandfather to our children, stated Hinata, putting a hand on Hanabi's shoulder. You know, when I found out I was pregnant, I knew this would complicate things, but all I wanted was for us to be a big happy family, said Hanabi, starting to tear up. Is that too much to ask for? At that moment Naruto put his arms around his spouses and held them close. We are a happy family, Hanabi. I love you both and I love both of my kids, comforted Naruto. That is something that will never change. We love you to Naruto, cried Hanabi. And we always will, added Hinata. Maybe Nitsuko just needs to prove everyone wrong, stated Naruto before grinning. Something I have a little experience in. A few minutes later Naruto entered Nitsuko's room and found her crying into her pillow. Naruto sat on her bed and put a hand on her back. Nitsuko, a good person takes responsibility for their actions, stated Naruto, which got her to calm down. Good. Now please look at me. Nitsuko got up and looked at her father, while still hugging her pillow. Her face was red, and she still had tears running down her face. Look, I know things haven't been easy for you and what that boy said was horrible, but you can't just lash out like that. If you're going to be a shinobi, you need to learn to keep your anger in check, advised Naruto firmly. While she appeared to understand what her father had said, Nitsuko said something unexpected. It's not fair, Dad, she cried. What isn't fair, honey? Asked Naruto. Why are Mum and I treated so horribly just because you and her aren't married? Asked Nitsuko. Naruto took a breath as he thought of a way to explain this to her that wouldn't upset her further. They don't just treat you and your mum horribly. Public opinion really went down for me when it was revealed I had taken your mother as my second wife. Your auntie received scrutiny for staying with me and your brother has received a bit of grief from other kids as well. In fact, he'd probably be in the same situation you're in if his mother hadn't been there to stop him. Truth be told though, based on what he told me I can't say I blame him for getting angry, stated Naruto. But why do they treat me and Mum so much worse? Queried Nitsuko. Mum said when two people love each other they have kids together. You love my mum, right? Just as much as you love auntie. Then why is my existence such a problem for everyone? Cried Nitsuko. Having grown up in the environment, it was probably hard for Nitsuko to understand why some considered their relationship disgraceful. He would just have to explain it in a way she would understand. Nitsuko, you see plenty of kids out with their parents, right? Asked Naruto. She nodded. How many do you that have three parents like you do? Queried Naruto. Nitsuko stopped and thought about this. Her mother, father and aunt had taken her and her brother on many trips around the Leaf Village, and in that time, she had seen many families with children. Sometimes she would see mothers with their children, sometimes she would see fathers with their children, sometimes she would see both. There were even occasions when she saw families that had two dads or two mothers, but she had never seen a family that consisted of three parents. None, she answered. That's right. That's why some people find our relationship weird or even disgraceful. Because to them, it seems unnatural that I can love and have two women be my wives, stated Naruto. It was probably worsened by the fact that they're sisters if I'm honest. But Mum's not your wife, right, Dad? Asked Nitsuko. No, not legally, admitted Naruto. Why not? Queried Nitsuko. It's complicated, stated Naruto. Please tell me, pleaded Nitsuko. Alright, sighed Naruto. Truth is, I didn't set out to fall in love with your mother and have her become a part of your auntie in my relationship. Then why did you? Asked Nitsuko. One day your mother came to your auntie and me and confessed that she too was in love with me. Your auntie had predicted this a while ago, but it was news to me, explained Naruto. Your mother feared this would destroy her relationship with us, but at the same time she felt she had to be honest. To her surprise and mine, your auntie was okay with this and happily asked if she would like to join our relationship. There are times where I wonder if I had much say in the matter, but I could see doing this would make your auntie happy, so I agreed in allowing your mother to join. It didn't take me long to fall in love with your mother as well. Why did you marry auntie instead of my mother? Asked Nitsuko nervously. Do you love her more? No, it's nothing like that, insisted Naruto. Again, it's complicated. Your auntie and I were already engaged when your mother confessed her feelings, and we feared if we called the wedding off people would get suspicious. So, we went through with it to keep our real relationship a secret. Unfortunately, we didn't consider the long-term consequences. A few months after Boruto was born, your mother discovered she was pregnant. It was then we knew that we had to be honest about our relationship. Sadly, some people haven't accepted it as well as others, but we didn't want that to stop us from being a happy family, because we love each other and that's all that matters. What if you married my mum as well? Would that fix things? Suggested Nitsuko. It's not that simple, Nitsuko, Naruto sighed. Why not? You said you love her, why can't you marry her? Asked Nitsuko. Because legally I can only have one spouse. And even if I could have more than one, I don't think it would change the public's opinion, answered Naruto. If you ask me, mum isn't an equal to you and auntie, pouted Nitsuko. I know what you mean, I feel that way sometimes too. But that's what makes your mother amazing, because she doesn't let it bother her, stated Naruto. Nitsuko looked at her father curiously. Listen, both your aunt and I have done everything we can to make your mother feel like an equal to us in this relationship. When the relationship became public, your auntie and I nearly divorced because we decided, if I can't be married to both the women I love, I won't be married to either. That way we would all be equal. Your mother hated this idea and tore up the divorce papers almost instantly, chuckled Naruto. This also got a chuckle out of Nitsuko. However, because your auntie and I believe your mother also deserves to be married to me, we decided to do the next best thing. We had another wedding ceremony so she could have a special day like her sister did. We knew our union wouldn't be considered official, but it was the best we could do. We even gave her an identical wedding band so she would know that we recognize her as an equal partner. Explained Naruto, who then smiled. You should have seen her face when that happened, she was so grateful we were willing to do all that for her. But then she said something that honestly shocked me. She said she didn't need all of this. Nitsuko had a shocked look on her face. She said she knew what she was getting into when she joined our relationship. She knew we could never be legally married the same way your aunt and I were, and that I loved your aunt before I loved her, but she didn't care about that. The only thing she cared about was that I loved her as well. And that's exactly why I love her just as much as I love your aunt. They are the most amazing women in the entire village and I consider myself so lucky that I was the one they fell in love with, stated Naruto. And because I love both my wives equally, I love both my children equally. Don't ever consider yourself inferior to Boruto. While I may be married to his mother, I love you just as much as I love him. Nitsuko put her head down and hugged her pillow tighter. I just wish the rest of the village could see that, she cried. Naruto made her look at him. Nitsuko, I wanna tell you something. When I was a kid, not only did I have no family, but I was rejected by the entire village. Why? Asked Nitsuko curiously. Again, it's complicated and it's not something I like talking about. I'll tell you when you're a little older, stated Naruto. My point is nearly the entire village believed I would amount to nothing and that I would always be a failure. People are now believing the same of you. You know what I did? Nitsuko shook her head. I proved them wrong. I worked hard and improved myself little by little each day. Before long I became someone the entire village admired, stated Naruto. And then you started a harem, and the village hated you again, groaned Nitsuko. I wouldn't say they hated me again. They just found it a little old-fashioned, stated Naruto. Nitsuko raised an eyebrow. Okay, they found it very old-fashioned and rather disgraceful. My point is, they can't completely hate me for it, because if it wasn't for my efforts in the last war, they might not be alive today. I helped them so much that they couldn't reject me again, just because I made a few decisions they didn't agree with. Explained Naruto. Unfortunately, it did stop me from accomplishing something I've dreamed of my whole life. That was to be Hokage, right? Asked Nitsuko. Yup. And because of my actions in the last war, me becoming Hokage seemed like a sure thing, stated Naruto proudly. Unfortunately, the village felt having a leader who was in a polygamous marriage made them look bad, and so they forbade me from becoming Hokage. That doesn't seem fair, especially if you're the reason we're still alive, stated Nitsuko. I know. They use the excuse that just because I saved the world doesn't mean I should be allowed to do whatever I want. And I agree, if I was a tyrant, I wouldn't blame them if they wanted to rise up against me and take me down, said Naruto. But you're not a tyrant, so why do they treat you like one? Asked Nitsuko. I guess because in their eyes, me having a second wife was me taking my first step towards tyranny, so they wanted to stop me from reaching a position of significant power, sighed Naruto. They wanted to remind me that despite all I've done, I still have to face consequences for my actions. But your actions aren't bad, you haven't done anything wrong and you haven't hurt anyone, argued Nitsuko. They don't see it that way. They see me taking a second wife as me unfairly exerting my power over others, and they don't want someone like that as their leader, stated Naruto. But didn't Mum fall in love with you out of her own free will? Asked Nitsuko. She chose to be your second wife, you didn't make her. I know, in their eyes, I took your auntie as my first wife and then forced your mother to be my second wife, said Naruto. We've tried to convince the village otherwise, but they refused to believe this was something we all agreed to. How can we convince them that this was something you all agreed to? Asked Nitsuko. If we do that, maybe they'll stop treating Mum and me so poorly. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that. We've tried to convince them, but they refuse to listen. And I can't force them to accept us, because then they'll continue to see me as a tyrant, which is not what any of us want, stated Naruto. There's only one thing we can do. We have to keep doing what I've always done. Keep fighting for acceptance. I got them to accept me once before and I know I can do it again. But how? You've already saved the world. What more can you do? Asked Nitsuko. Show them that no matter how bad they treat me, I'll always be there to protect them. We may live in a time of peace, but something tells me there will come a day where the world will be in crisis again. When that day comes, I will step forward and protect everyone, just like I did in the last war, declared Naruto. They'll see that no matter what I'll always be there to help, and hopefully they'll finally understand that I didn't take a second wife to exert my power, I did it because I had enough love in my heart to love two women. You really think that'll happen? Asked Nitsuko curiously. I know it will, and when that day comes, they'll be begging me to lead them and take my rightful place as Hokage of the Leaf Village, declared Naruto. No offense, Dad, but why would you still want that position? Asked Nitsuko. I can understand still wanting to defend them, but do you really think they deserve you as Hokage? Where's this coming from? Asked Naruto curiously. I expect this attitude from your brother, but never from you. Nitsuko blushed. Don't tell brother I told you this, but he thinks if you do become Hokage you should tell them. You had your chance, but now that I've proven once and for all that I'm better than you, you can buzz off. He then thinks you should resign from the position immediately, because you accomplished what you need to, but they don't deserve your leadership. Naruto shook his head and laughed. Clearly Boruto hadn't learned his lesson from the last conversation they had. He had a feeling he might have to have another talk with him. I can see what he means, that would be a fun way to stick it to them. At least he wants me to become Hokage first, because he knows that'll benefit all of us, especially you and your mum, stated Naruto. What do you mean? Asked Nitsuko. I guess, now's as good a time as any to tell you, said Naruto. While I still want to become Hokage so I can protect and lead the Leaf Village, I now have another reason for wanting to obtain the position. According to the marital laws of the Land of Fire, only those who hold a significant position of political power is allowed to have more than one wife. Wait, you mean? Asked Nitsuko hopefully. Yep. If I become Hokage, I'll legally be allowed to take a second wife. As soon as I become Hokage, the first thing I'm going to do is ask your mother to marry me, for real this time, said Naruto. Nitsuko had the biggest grin ever seen on her face. Naruto could tell that she too now wished for Naruto to become Hokage so he could marry her mother. That being said, it's going to take a lot of hard work to gain their trust again, but one day I'll prove that despite my outdated marriage practices, I'm still worthy of being Hokage, stated Naruto. You need to do the same, but for a different reason. Nitsuko looked confused. You need to prove you are more than just I don't like saying this because I don't consider it true, more than just my illegitimate child. You need to prove you will be a strong and brave shinobi who will do everything she can to protect the Leaf Village. And I don't want to hear you say you can't do it. I know you can do it because of one simple fact, because you are my daughter. Naruto didn't know how it was possible, but Nitsuko's grin got even bigger. Thanks, Dad, she sniffed. Naruto also smiled, but his face quickly became firm. But like I said, a good shinobi keeps their temper in check. And a good person takes responsibility for their actions. Nitsuko knew she was foolish for thinking she would get out of this easily. You're grounded for a month, and not only do you have to help your mum and auntie around the house, we've contacted your grandfather and you'll be helping around his home as well, stated Naruto firmly. But Grandpa's house is huge, cried Nitsuko. Well, hopefully you'll think twice before losing your temper again, said Naruto before turning to leave. Then again, you know what your grandfather's like, he might go easy on you. They both had a small laugh at this statement. Also, you might want to get used to going over to see Grandpa, because after your grounding's over, you'll be going over to his house to train when he's available, stated Naruto. What? Why? Asked Nitsuko curiously. I know you don't remember what happened, but everyone present confirmed you've unlocked the Byakugan. You're going to visit Grandpa so he can help you master it, answered Naruto. Couldn't Mum or Auntie help me with that? Asked Nitsuko. They could, but we know teaching you the ways of the Hyuga would make your grandfather happy, so we decided to leave that training to him, stated Naruto. Good point, laughed Nitsuko. But like I said, it won't be happening until after your punishment is over. You best behave yourself in the meantime, advised Naruto before closing the door behind him. Nitsuko accepted her punishment without complaint. She helped around the house with whatever her mother and aunt needed and only left the house when she had to go over to help her grandfather. As predicted, her grandfather was a little more lenient with her, but not by much. Overall, the month passed relatively quickly and Nitsuko got back to playing with her family around the village like she always had. She also spent many days at her grandfather's home, so he could help her master her abilities. Despite having the knowledge that her father loved her, Nitsuko continued to remain insecure about who she was. She despised the nickname given to her by villagers, as she hated it when people told her she wasn't her father's legitimate daughter. Whenever she heard someone call her the harem bastard, she was filled with white-hot rage. She did her best to keep her anger in check, but sometimes it became too much for her to bear. Because of this, her family tried to ensure she didn't leave the house alone as much as possible. Thankfully, this was easily accomplished as Boruto and Nitsuko did nearly everything together, so they were mostly able to go on with their lives as if nothing had changed. And while they had told her they wanted her to stay with Boruto to make sure he behaved, it was also to help ensure she didn't lose her temper. They knew Boruto could calm her down if she became angry, and he'd been advised to do this ever since Natsuko had put the bully in the hospital. They didn't tell her this though, because they didn't want her to think they didn't trust her. This ensured no major incidents occurred over the next few years. Natsuko was still prone to outbursts, but she had managed to avoid putting someone in the hospital again. That was until she had been forced to separate from her brother after he had been suspended from the academy. After her first day, Natsuko and Hanabi came through the front door with Hanabi holding Natsuko by the collar of her shirt. Boruto and Hinata were sat at the kitchen table where Boruto was being homeschooled. "What's going on?" asked Hinata. "Long story short, Boruto isn't the only troublemaker that won't be attending the academy for a while," answered Hanabi, looking at Natsuko angrily. "Has she been suspended as well?" asked Hinata nervously. "No, thankfully she was able to avoid suspension, as everyone confirmed the other child was the instigator," explained Hanabi. "She got into a fight after some boy provoked her." "Did he?" Hinata was cut off as Hanabi knew what was being asked. "Yes," answered Hanabi. "Did she?" asked Hinata, remembering the last major incident. "Yes," answered Hanabi. With Naruto away on a mission, Hanabi would have to deliver the entire punishment herself. While the sisters had agreed to love each other's children like their own, they still agreed to boundaries when it came to punishments. Because of this, Hinata knew it would be better if she left. "Boruto, we're going to the shops. You're going to help me get something for dinner tonight," ordered Hinata. "You said I had to finish first," stated Boruto, who was curious about what was going on. "We'll finish after dinner. Now let's go," ordered Hinata. But Boruto trailed off after Hinata activated her Byakugan. Boruto knew that when she did this, she was not in the mood for arguing. Boruto got up from his seat and left the house with his mother. After the door shut, Hanabi dragged Natsuko to her bedroom. They entered. Hanabi pointed at Natsuko's bed, and Natsuko sat down without arguing. For a while, Hanabi just stood there with her hands on her hips, glaring at her daughter. "Mom, Natsuko was cut off from speaking. "Quiet," interrupted a furious Hanabi. Natsuko flinched at how angry her mother was. "I thought we talked about this, Natsuko. You can't just lose your temper like that. We taught you Hyuga family techniques, because we thought we could trust you to use them wisely," lectured Hanabi. "I know, and I'm sorry. I just can't help it. I hate it when someone calls me that name," stated Natsuko, holding back tears. She hated the term, the harem bastard, so much that she could never bring herself to say it. "I thought your father talked to you about this the last time this happened?" queried Hanabi. "He did, but it's hard, okay? Everywhere I go, people make me feel like I'm not Dad's true daughter and that no matter what, I'll never be seen as his legitimate child," stated Natsuko. Hanabi took a breath, sat down next to her daughter and put a hand on her shoulder. Hanabi was still angry with her, but at the same time she understood why she was so insecure about this. "Don't you remember what your father said?" asked Hanabi. "He doesn't see you as an illegitimate child. While your father and I aren't legally married, he considers me his wife and considers himself my husband, and I think the same way. So, in our eyes, you are a legitimate child. He loves me just as much as he loves your aunt, and he loves you just as much as he loves Boruto. Even your aunt loves you more like a daughter than a niece, and I love Boruto like he was my own. Knowing this, why do you care so much about what others think?" "Because it makes me feel like I'm nothing and that no matter what I do, people will continue to look at me like I'm a disgusting creature that should have never been born," cried Natsuko, finally breaking into tears. "I know brother has also faced problems from all this, but at least people don't act like his very existence is a disgrace." Hanabi wished Naruto could have been here for this, because this was a feeling he knew all too well. Unfortunately, he'd made both Hanabi and Hinata promise to keep some of the sadder parts of his childhood a secret, because it was something he wanted to forget. "Look, I know it's hard, but you're just gonna have to try and ignore what others are saying. Do as your father said, work hard, prove yourself, and eventually people will come around, advised Hanabi. And what if they don't? Asked Nitsuko. What if I became the greatest ninja in the world and people still looked at me like my existence is disgusting? Then those people are a bunch of blind, ungrateful fools who can't see you for who you are, answered Hanabi. But we see the real you. You are a sweat and smart girl and we love you so much. Does brother love me? Asked Natuko with her head down. What are you talking about? Of course he does, answered Hanabi confused. Then why does he never introduce me as his sister? Asked Nitsuko. Whenever we meet new people, he always introduces me by name. Does he see me as his sister, or just his half-sister and cousin? Only he can answer that question, but you guys have been close since you were babies, just ask him and I'm sure he'll say he considers you his sister, advised Hanabi. Nitsuko shook her head. I can't, I'm too afraid of what he'll say, stated Nitsuko. Well, you have plenty of time to ask. Do so when you're ready, advised Hanabi. Back on topic, I'm serious when I say you can't do this anymore. You caused your father enough grief after you and your brother drove that train into the Hokage's monument. Yes, you didn't hit any of the faces, but that's besides the point. How do you think he'll feel if he finds out you're getting into fights? He defended me before, answered Nitsuko weakly. And he'll keep defending you for as long as he lives, especially considering the circumstances. But there may come a time when you go too far and he won't be able to defend you anymore, stated Hanabi. What do you mean? Asked Nitsuko. You might be young, but you're already a skilled fighter and you've been taught extremely dangerous techniques, that if misused could have disastrous consequences. You got lucky the last 2 times. The first boy you hurt was able to make a full recovery and I hear you didn't hurt this one as badly, so he'll be fine. But what if next time you go too far? Boruto and Metal were able to intervene the first time, and this time your teacher managed to stop you from doing too much damage. What if you're alone the next time you lose your temper, and no one is around to stop you? Queried Hanabi. Nitsuko knew what her mother meant. If misused, the techniques she knew could easily kill someone, and Nitsuko knew that was something she'd never be able to live with. I could do something so bad that no one in the world would be able to help me, answered Nitsuko. Exactly. Like I said, you got lucky this time, because you could have been expelled for your actions. Be grateful you and your classmates were able to convince your teacher you weren't the instigator. But I warn you, if this happens again it's over for you, stated Hanabi. What do you mean? Asked Nitsuko. If this happens again, I'm gonna have you pulled from the academy until next year, stated Hanabi. What? Why? Asked Nitsuko. Because doing this shows you aren't ready for the responsibility that comes with being a shinobi. We entered you early because we thought we could trust you and because we knew it would make you happy to attend with your brother, answered Hanabi. If you keep losing your temper, all you prove is that you aren't ready. But mum, don't. But mum me, growled Hanabi. This is your final warning. If you lose your temper again, you're out of the academy and you'll be spending the next year with me teaching you to keep your anger in check. Hanabi got up and headed from the door. Nitsuko was sad, but not because her mother yelled at her. She was sad because she knew what she had done was wrong and she felt nothing but shame. As Hanabi looked back, she too became sad by how upset Nitsuko was. When Nitsuko was a baby, her laugh was the cutest thing Hanabi ever heard, and it never failed to brighten her day. Nitsuko had also been a baby that laughed a lot. Seeing Nitsuko so upset over the mistreatment from the other villagers broke Hanabi's heart. I know you're just defending yourself, Hanabi said more calmly. But that doesn't change the fact that we need to be responsible and also face the consequences of our actions. Both the good and the bad. And don't forget there will come a day where no one can say you aren't a legitimate child, but to do that we all need to help your father gain back the trust of the village. Hanabi left, leaving Nitsuko to think about what she said. Nitsuko took her mother's threats seriously and made sure to be on her best behavior from then on. Unfortunately, her actions had caused her to become an outcast at the academy. Whenever she tried to approach the other students, they ran from her in panic. Thankfully, Denki and Shikadai still treated her with kindness and invited her to sit with them. This made Nitsuko happy, but she was still eager for her brother to return, so they could continue their journey together. That time had come and now Nitsuko was facing the same issue she had before. Back in the classroom, Nitsuko looked nearly ready to pop as she was shaking with anger. Just as I thought. Not only are you a disgusting bastard, you're also too much of a coward to stand up for yourself, mocked Iwabe. Having heard enough, Boruto stepped forward. He knew he needed to fulfill his role as an older brother. You know I don't appreciate some jerk talking to my sister that way, spat Boruto. Iwabe turned back to Boruto. Meanwhile, hearing Boruto call Nitsuko his sister helped her calm down. You don't know us or what we're capable of, declared Boruto. I told my mother I wouldn't pick fights while I'm here, but I'm not gonna take your crap any longer. We're finding a place to fight and I'm going to show you what I'm made of. Iwabe gave Boruto an evil grin. Fine, putting you in your place should be fun. No, interjected Nitsuko. They all turned their attention to her. Nitsuko, I know you're worried about me, but this jerk needs to be taught a lesson, insisted Boruto. It's not that. I have full confidence you can beat him, but I want to show him who I really am. I'm gonna be the one to fight him, declared Nitsuko. Are you sure about that? Remember what happened last time? Stated Boruto. Please brother, begged Nitsuko. There was something different about Nitsuko here. Normally she would have already lost her temper and attacked Iwabe in blind range. While she still had range in her eyes, Boruto could only describe the look on her face as determination. Most would call him foolish for what he did next, but Boruto had a feeling that everything would be okay. Alright, show this jerk what you're made of, stated Boruto. Nitsuko nodded with confidence. Some big brother you are, spat Iwabe. Backing down and letting his sister fight his battle for him. Boruto just chucked. I didn't just challenge you because it's what a good big brother does. I challenged you, because Nitsuko's wrath is not something I would wish upon my worst enemy. Is that so? Well then, maybe this fight will be enjoyable, stated Iwabe staring at Nitsuko with pure anger. With the challenge made, the class headed from the classroom to a training arena that would act as a battlefield. Little did they know something had been left behind that alerted their teacher to this. A beetle could be seen flying from the classroom making its way back to the homeroom teacher Shino. The beetle landed on his finger. Something wrong? Asked Shino, as the beetle communicated to him. I see. Good thing Hinata asked me to keep an eye on Nitsuko after the last incident. Normally I'd simply stop this, but I'm sure Naruto will want to hear about this. I also think Hanabi would like to know what her daughter is up to. Shino left to make a few phone calls. Back at the training arena, Nitsuko and Iwabe stood on the battleground, while everyone else stood in the stands. This is bad, stated Denki, fearful for Nitsuko's safety. What are you taking about? She'll be fine, stated Boruto confidently. How can you be so sure? Queried Denki. I looked Iwabe up. Not only is he the best in our class at ninjutsu and taijutsu, he was the best in last year's class as well. If his grades weren't so abysmal in other areas, he'd already be a fine ninja. None of that matters. No matter how strong he is, Nitsuko is stronger, declared Boruto. She may be young, but ever since we discovered Nitsuko has the Byakugan, our grandfather has been training her in the ways of the Hyuga clan. If anyone can beat him, it's her. He's right, interjected Shikadai. Her opponent may be tough, but she's not someone you'd want to pick a fight with either. I certainly wouldn't anyway. Well, if you're sure, conceded Denki. Still, this won't be an easy fight. If she wants to win, she'll have to give it everything she has. Don't worry, she'll win, said Boruto confidently. You're not a very good big brother, are you? Interjected Inojin. Excuse me, groaned Boruto. She's the one who insisted on fighting. Trust me, she can take care of herself. It doesn't matter. My father told me an older sibling always steps in to defend their younger sibling. It doesn't matter if she can handle herself. If you were a good big brother, you'd be fighting instead of her, stated Inojin. No offense, Inojin, but I'm not taking sibling advice from someone who's an only child, retorted Boruto. Inojin smirked. Fair point. But believe me, if things get out of hand, you'll see just how good of a big brother I am, stated Boruto, turning back to watch the fight. On the training field, Iwabe and Nitsuko were staring daggers at each other. So, is the little bastard ready to fight? Taunted Iwabe. Nitsuko took a breath before answering. Ready when you are. I'll admit I'm impressed. Most challengers would have forfeited by this point, stated Iwabe arrogantly. Your existence might be a disgrace, but at least you're not a coward. Because of that, I'll even give you a small advantage. Not that it'll do you much good. Iwabe took his staff and plunged it into the ground. I'll agree to fight by academy sparring rules, and I won't use this. Mainly because if I did, you'd die, stated Iwabe. With the way you've been acting, I'm amazed that would be a problem for you, stated Nitsuko. Iwabe smirked at this. He couldn't deny Nitsuko had more guts than he thought. Your existence may be a disgrace, but I've heard what's happened to the people that mistreated you, so potentially killing you is not a chance I'm willing to take. Explained Iwabe. You may be a bastard, but your father clearly still cares about you. Why wouldn't he? He's my father, stated Nitsuko. True, but he can't protect you forever. And once I beat you, the Hokage will realize you and your family aren't worth supporting. Truth be told, I can't figure out why he even wants to be associated with your father, spat Iwabe. My father saved the entire world, why wouldn't he want to associate with him? Asked Nitsuko. Also, as my father was the Hokage's student, he probably sees him as his greatest success. You all act like my father committed a major sin, when in reality he's done nothing wrong, argued Nitsuko. The Hokage knows this, which is why he has always supported my family. In fact, he's even helped against those who mistreat me. Which leads me to my next question. If you've heard the stories, why are you willing to treat me this way? Because when I become a strong ninja, I'll make sure people like you are never allowed to attend the ninja academy, declared Iwabe. With the way he was acting, Nitsuko was even more surprised he wasn't fighting her with everything he had. She wouldn't be holding back. Especially when she remembered one of the first things her grandfather taught her after her Byakugan awakened. After her grounding had ended, Nitsuko was regularly sent to her grandfather's home to help hone her abilities and so she could learn additional Hyuga techniques. Her first day of training had ended and she hadn't performed well. While her grandfather had been nothing but kind to her and her brother, she had heard stories about what he used to be like from both Hinata and Hanabi and so feared the repercussions that may come from not performing well in training. Grandpa, I'm sorry, I did my best, please don't be mad at me, begged Nitsuko on her knees. Mad at you? Why would I ever be mad at you? Cried Hiashi, tearing up a little. Have your mother and aunt been telling mean stories about me again? Nitsuko looked at Hiashi with confusion. It was moments like this that she questioned how true the stories of her grandfather were, because she could not imagine him as the stern, strict man that he had been during her mother's childhood. Her brother felt the same way. The next thing Nitsuko knew, her grandfather had pulled her into a hug. Was I too hard on you? I'll do better next time, he proclaimed, squeezing her. No, Grandpa, you were fine, comforted Nitsuko. I just thought you'd want me to be more of a prodigy. Hiashi let her go and looked at her. Everyone learns at their own pace. Had I accepted that earlier, I could have been a better father. Especially to your aunt. Even though Hiashi was confirming what Hinata and Hanabi said, Nitsuko still found it hard to believe that her grandfather had been a much stricter man in the past. It's only your first day. I don't expect you to become an expert overnight, stated Hiashi. Sorry, Grandpa. I just thought you'd be happier if I was a natural, admitted Nitsuko. Don't be silly. The fact that you're here learning the ways of the Hyuga clan is what truly makes me happy, stated Hiashi before pulling a photo of his grandkids from his jacket. The only thing that would make me happier is if your brother was here learning as well. Sadly, as fate has not gifted your brother with the Byakugan, there is only so much I can teach him. Seems a bit unfair that brother can't use the Byakugan just because he got dad's eyes. He may not look it, but he's still technically a Hyuga, stated Nitsuko. Indeed he is, so you never know, he may be able to learn more under me eventually, stated Hiashi. But I thought brother didn't have the Byakugan because he didn't inherit his mother's eyes like I did, stated Nitsuko, pointing at the white eyes she shared with her mother, aunt and grandfather. I wouldn't be so sure, stated Hiashi. While Hyugas generally tried to marry within the clan, there were a few who didn't, and they would sometimes have children with eyes different to ours. This led to rare, but not unheard of cases of children unlocking the Byakugan that didn't possess the Hyuga eyes. Furthermore, not every member of the Hyuga clan is able to unlock the Byakugan, meaning that just because you have your mother's eyes it didn't guarantee you'd be able to unlock it. So in other words, I was lucky? Asked Nitsuko. In a way, but you were also lucky enough to be given a situation where you were able to unlock it, answered Hiashi. Though I think we can all agree that we wish it were under better circumstances. Indeed, said Nitsuko, still a little ashamed over what she had done. None of that matters now. What does matter is teaching you how to control this ability, stated Hiashi. And I promise, I'll do everything I can to help you become an excellent user of both the Byakugan and the Gentle Fist. Thanks, Grandpa, smiled Nitsuko. But please let me know if I'm pushing you too far. I'm not going to make the same mistakes I did with my own children. I still can't believe your aunt forgave me, but I guess that just shows how great a person she is, stated Hiashi. But won't pushing me help me get better? Queried Nitsuko. For some it might, but not for all. It took me a long time to realize that, while pushing is good for some, encouragement is what others need. That being said, I will find it a little difficult to go easy on you while training, stated Hiashi. Why's that? Asked Nitsuko. It's how I was taught. I was taught to never go easy on an opponent. That I always had to fight to my fullest. This is something I still struggle with, even when trying to pass on knowledge to others. I'll try to go easy on you, but I want you to remember something, stated Hiashi. Nitsuko gave Hiashi her full attention. Not everyone will go easy on you. Your father, mother, aunt and your brother might all take it easy on you while sparing, but that won't be the case for everyone. There will come a day where you'll face an opponent who will fight you with everything they have. When that day comes, I advise you fight them with everything you got. If you don't it could end badly advised Hiashi. So, I want you to promise me, when the time comes to face a tough opponent, you'll fight them with everything you got. Nitsuko took her grandfather's hand in hers. I promise, Grandpa, she declared. Good. Now let's get you home. Your mum and aunt will kill me if I don't get you home in time for dinner, laughed Hiashi. Nitsuko felt that the day her grandfather had been referring to had come and Iwabe was an opponent.